Oh my gosh. Okay, I see that. I gotta do these little tests to see if it works or not. Okay, it works. Just doing a little reaction.
Piracy for Moose.
Alrighty.
According to the anti-piracy firm Muso, global piracy has increased over 65% in the last 5 years, with TV and video now accounting for the largest share of pirated traffic. But when
This was 2 months ago, so I let this simmer for a little bit longer than it should have. Yeah, these 4 videos that we're gonna be watching is I let it simmer for a long time. I wanted to react to it for a very long time.
the average person is spending 45% more on streaming services than just last year, often while still being forced to watch ads. It raises a question: if buying is not owning, then why is piracy stealing? While piracy is routinely villainized as a direct economic threat to creators,
Cheap as I look so bright. That doesn't help either.
and the entertainment industry, as if it's the real culprit behind the lack of funding, loss of jobs, and declining innovation. The reality is that piracy does not surge in healthy markets. It sets sail when greed and corruption decide that culture itself can only exist for those who can afford it. During the late 1990s, just 6 major record labels controlled over 75% of the entire music industry, granting them power to inflate CD prices, dictate which artists received exposure, and severely suppressed artist earnings. In an extensive industry-wide investigation, the Federal Trade Commission estimated that consumers were overcharged roughly $480 million as these labels pressured retail chains into marketing agreements that prohibited
That's not fair.
advertising discounts below fixed prices.
I'm
While the
gonna
labels
try
were
not to
eventually
pause too
fined
much. I'm
$143
just
million
gonna sit and
in
watch.
2002, they still walked away having profited by more than $337 million through coordinated price gouging. However, in 1999, Sean Fanning and Sean Parker launched Napster, a peer-to-peer file-sharing platform that allowed users to freely exchange digital music at virtually zero cost. Within a year, the music industry recorded a 9.1% decline in US sales, and by the end of 2001, Napster had surpassed 80 million registered users, making it the fastest growing internet application of its time.
Can you make these smaller?
And while media conglomerates initially brushed aside both Napster and the broader digital shift, once it clearly impacted the bottom line, record labels responded not by reforming pricing models, access, or compensation structures, but by unleashing waves of lawsuits, labeling Napster a giant online pirate bazaar, facilitating rampant theft and infringement. Despite the fact that these were the same.
Well, here's the thing. When people pirate, they don't want to feel like they got scammed, so they just steal it instead. Not that I'm justifying it, but that's just how a contributing factor of why people pirate. I don't condone it, but it's understandable. Nobody wants to get scammed anymore. They can't afford to get scammed.
Firms that had just walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars in profits from illegal CD price fixing. And while high-profile artists such as Metallica, Dr. Dre, and Eminem publicly framed Napster as theft that undermined artistic control, many smaller and independent artists expressed it as an escape from industry gatekeeping. Throughout the late 80s and 90s, major record labels illegally routed between $60 and $80 million a year in cash and incentives to radio program directors to secure playlist placement, inflating the popularity of label-backed releases while suppressing independent competition. Groups such as Dispatch later credited Napster for the organic exposure that helped them build dedicated fan bases and long-term careers without any forms of major label backing.
Oh my gosh, I'm blocking it.
But in the end, Napster paid roughly $36 million in settlements, while the industry-wide pay-to-play scheme that absorbed hundreds of millions annually resulted in fines totaling just $27 million. And while Napster was ultimately dismantled, alongside anti-piracy campaigns that dominated the early internet, including the one etched into the memory of nearly every millennial and Gen Z viewer, ironically set in a copyrighted font, the rise of platforms like Apple iTunes and early digital subscription models demonstrated that when media was accepted.
How many people still use Apple? I mean, I use Samsung because I don't have to deal with the Apple gatekeeping and whatnot, but unless you jailbreak your phone, then kudos to you. But I use a Galaxy phone.
Accessible, high quality, and reasonably priced, customers were more than willing to pay. It was not long ago that you could access nearly every show you cared about on Netflix, ad-free, for around $8 a month. But alas, consolidation and greed have once again ad-free for around $8 a month. But alas,
Paramount Skydance, deal type all cash, value to shareholders $30 per share, total enterprise value $108.48. Financing certainty, backed by equity debt, consortium board, dispute certainty, assets covered, entire Warner Brothers Discovery, including cable networks. Netflix, deal type merger, negotiated all cash, value to shareholders $27.75 per share, total enterprise value $82.78. Is that really? No. I might be looking at it wrong, but whatever, I'm reading it. Financing certainty, strong bank commitments, large Netflix balance sheet, assets covered, studio, film, TV streaming. Senator Mike Lee, Netflix could become the one platform to rule them all. I wish not. Bitcoin. Stay away from Bitcoin. Do we even need this? I think you all can watch it.
Consolidation and greed have once again narrowed the seas, summoning the Black Pearl back into open waters. Now, the irony surrounding modern piracy is that these companies only seem concerned when individuals access their content without permission, while generating billions of dollars through the extraction and sale of your personal information. Nearly every major streaming service operates under the same privacy framework. They collect watch history, device identifiers, IP addresses, inferred interests, and demographic data to then package that information into behavioral profiles, monetized through targeted advertising. And while individuals can face severe financial penalties and prison sentences for pirating content,
just for the record, I am watching it through my OBS, so I can also see the chat in case someone does say something.
Disney, a platform marketed as family-friendly and heavily orientated towards children, recently reached a settlement with the Federal Trade Commission over the unlawful collection of children's personal data, resulting in a
Disney is not the same. But then again, it was still bad for the actors in the beginning. Never mind. These companies sucks.
$1 million fine that amounts to roughly 2 hours of operating income based on Disney's 2025 revenue. However, the larger and more pervasive issue is where this data collection is actually taking place. Most modern smart TVs and streaming devices rely on a system known as automatic content recognition, or ACR, which identifies the audio and video frames
I'll just make myself tinier, just so everybody can see it. Or maybe I'll just move over here. Wait, I would be blocking the... Okay, yeah, I'll just stay right here.
that appear on your TV, regardless of the source. Unlike app-based tracking, ACR can recognize content from streaming services, cable boxes, and gaming consoles, allowing platforms to build a comprehensive profile based on the shows you watch, the advertisements you see, the sports teams you root for, and even personal content such as photos, messages, and interfaces that may appear during input switching. These samples are then converted into digital fingerprints to build detailed behavioral profiles used for advertising and cross-device targeting. And while many platforms claim users can disable ACR, Roku states in its own privacy policy that doing so does not stop all data collection, as viewing and interaction data continues to flow through these other channels, including third-party applications running on your device, which effectively demonstrates that by the industry's own definition, if buying does not constitute ownership and privacy can still be extracted regardless of consent, then on what basis is piracy being framed as theft? The unfortunate reality behind that question is that much of America...
Doesn't it feel like, okay, I mean, it kind of feels like false advertising, like you... I mean, you can either say false advertising or just straight up fraud. Well, no, fraud is when they give you a bad product that they're advertising. Like they're lying about the quality. So, it's just a scam then, I guess.
American privacy law is not designed to protect customers. It exists only where corporations allow it to. Ownership has been replaced by licenses, rights have been replaced by terms of service, and privacy has been replaced by disclosure. And when data extraction is built into the system, and legal protection only exists where it does not threaten profit, individual action becomes the only remaining option. And that's why I use Delete Me. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that removes your personal information from hundreds of data brokers and people's search sites, reducing the risk of your valuable data getting into the wrong hands. Their mission is rooted in the belief that you have the right to own, manage, and remove your personal data. Delete Me has been the leading expert in personally identifiable information removal for over 15 years. They continuously remove your data using their own tech without ever outsourcing to third parties to ensure your data stays safe. And unlike other services, Delete Me also verifies your data is on these broker sites before submitting removal requests, reducing the risk of unnecessary data exposure. I personally started using Delete Me after I was actually reached out about my personal address that had never been shared on the channel before, where in my journey to not only protect my safety, but fight for my own data protection, Delete Me has consistently been a tool that I've relied on. Not only removing my information from 15 data brokers this month, but they also uncovered websites that had connected my personal information through my uncle who had passed away before I was born. So if you want to reclaim ownership of your personal data and get 20% off Delete Me's consumer plans, click the link in the description and use code Damon at checkout, or scan the QR code on screen. That's www.joindeleteme.com/Damon Cassidy.
Go for it, chat.
And use code Damon to get 20% off. Thank you, Delete Me, for sponsoring this video. Now, the reality of piracy is that it is illegal, just like price fixing is illegal. just like bribery is illegal, just like mass personal data extraction is illegal. And yet, only one of these have ever been framed as a moral failure, because as we have clearly seen in recent months, the rules simply do not apply to those with armies of lawyers in their corner. This contradiction is most clearly exposed by AI companies being legally permitted to pirate personal and copyrighted content in the pursuit of improved training. Documents reported by Torrent Freak show NVIDIA's data strategy team reached out about payments for high-speed access to Anna's archives, a well-known shadow library, where they ultimately gained access to more than 500 terabytes of books. That's the equivalent of roughly 150 to 250 million books. And while NVIDIA maintains that this activity qualifies as fair use, Anna's archive itself remains the target of active lawsuits brought by Spotify and the same major record labels that once prosecuted Napster for piracy. Meta has made a similar argument in court filings, acknowledging that employees torrented more than 82 terabytes of pirated material to train its AI models, while claiming they took precautions not to seed the files, meaning they avoided sharing the pirated content with other users. Imagine using that as a defense in court for downloading pirated content yourself. And while these cases are still ongoing, history tells us that even if consequences are imposed, the fines will be insignificant compared to the profits generated from the use of that content. Meanwhile, individuals face an entirely different standard. According to court records, Davis Norman III of New Orleans received a 2-year prison sentence for duplicating and selling pirated movies and music using a home DVD and CD burner, selling copies for $10 from his car in a parking lot. Again, pirating is illegal, but only one side is treated as a criminal threat, rather than just the cost of doing business. Speaking of the cost of doing business, it is difficult to understand how Netflix can claim its current subscription tiers have earned any form of customer support. In 2018, the standard plan, without ads, with full access to the catalog, cost $7.99 a month. Today, Netflix's basic plan costs the same $7.99, but now includes advertisements and blocks access to more than 130 movies and television series. To receive the equivalent experience offered in 2018 now costs $17.99 a month, an increase that exceeds inflation by roughly 75%. To highlight this complete lack of respect for the customer, Spotify just sent me an email thanking me for being a valued premium customer. We value you so much that we're raising prices effective immediately.
Thank you for being a value premium subscriber. Starting on your billing date in February, your subscription price will change from $11.99 to $12.99. What's the point of getting Netflix when you could just use your computer? Or hey, you can use your laptop, connect the HDMI if it has one to the TV, or your computer if you feel like it. Yeah, just use the internet, just go on whatever anime free website and just go there.
We're updating our pricing to keep delivering the same great experience, which at this point seems to mean more AI-generated songs. But maybe they think they can just take advantage of me because the only real innovation they've managed in nearly a decade was letting me know that my listening age is 85, proving that when companies no longer respect their audience or customer base, entertainment becomes designed for consumption rather than curated for enjoyment. With the real moral failure being punished through piracy is not theft, but the absence of accountability, the expectation that customers must absorb rising costs, declining quality, and broken promises without demanding that companies actually earn the dollar they take.
We've built on improving the value proposition for consumers.
Like Fortnite V-Bucks price increase. That was a horrifying sight to see. I don't play Fortnite, but I feel bad for anyone who does play Fortnite.
Whenever we come back and ask for a little more money, it's because we've given them a lot more value. And that's the dynamic I talked to about this price per hour of viewing being a third of some of the other services that are available.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks! Now, to just make it clear, and legally crystal clear, I am not encouraging piracy. I'm not telling you to go pirate, and I have never actually pirated content myself.
Yeah, do not pirate. It's dangerous and risky. I have to go back to hear what that guy said.
For consumers,
Companies actually earn the dollar they take.
we've
Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos testifies before Senate Judiciary Committee.
built on improving the value proposition for consumers. Whenever we come back and ask for a little more money, it's because we've given them a lot more value. And that's the dynamic I talked to about this price per hour of viewing being a third of some of the other services that are available.
Oh,
That's like Nintendo increasing the price. Didn't you have to pay for the demo manual? What did they call it? What was that thing called? I don't want to say it, but I'll spell it out. Yep. Coined by author Cory Doctorow to describe the deliberate, gradual degradation of quality in online platforms and services. There was another word that wait. There was another word. Rubbishification. A British variety. Alright, let's get back to this.
brother, this guy stinks! Now, to just make it clear, and legally crystal clear, I am not encouraging piracy. I'm not telling you to go pirate, and I have never actually pirated content myself. I'm not even really criticizing the subscription business model. What I am doing is I'm trying to target the blatant, one-sided enforcement of our legal system. Greed and corruption isn't just plaguing our country. It's running our country. And they are so convinced that we are so stupid and they disrespect us so much that they think, they basically know they're going to be able to get away with it. And not only that, the unfortunate reality is if they do have to pay consequences, it's going to be a slap on the wrist.
He's not wrong. I was also a victim of just consuming slop. The gotcha games. At the end of the day, it was never worth it. Never.
For the sake of this video, what I'm really trying to do is emphasize
And that's just one of
they
the
have
things.
no respect for your hard-earned dollar. Absolutely none. You're a consumer. Some filthy, stupid consumer. That's how they view you. If they actually genuinely cared, they would be doing everything in their power to be able to provide as much value to you at a reasonable price. There you go. I just ended piracy. It's that easy. It isn't complicated.
Quality.
It's
that
just like in my
matches the
previous video
price.
about the birth rate. Make things more affordable and give young people a sense of hope. Done. But that's not really what they want to do. They don't actually care about that.
They want
They
more
don't actually
money.
care. They just want to line their pockets. And so they're going to do everything in their power to be able to squash you to the best of their ability so that they can make more money. And I know that it seems like I'm being, a little heightened and a little tense here, but the reality is that there are hundreds of thousands, there's millions and millions and millions of people out there that are working as hard as they possibly can. And I believe that they deserve the right to be able to have some entertainment, some opportunities to enjoy themselves. And it's just disgusting to see the way that the price fixing is going, and the bribery, and the theft, and the, like, why can't you just offer an affordable movie? And it ultimately boils down to they don't care. When was the last time that you think a producer or director or, you know, whoever manages what movies comes out, when was the last time that you thought, or that they had to think, I don't know if I can afford to take my family to $100 movie experience? Because if the movie is bad for these, you know, people in charge, well, their write-offs give them tens of millions of dollars of benefit. A working class family cannot recoup the time and the energy and the resources to take their family to a bad movie. You know it's going to be bad, and you know that the movie experience is going to be bad. You know, I'm somebody that obviously creates content, right? You are watching it on your phone or your TV or your laptop or something like that. I know that your time is precious. You have a lot of other things that you could be doing, a lot of stresses, a lot of concerns, and a lot of responsibilities. It is a privilege to have your time to watch this. So I do everything in my power to be able to provide as much value to you in as much of a reasonable time as I possibly can. And YouTube is like basically free. I mean, I get that you have to watch ads and things like that, but it's still free. It just disgusts me that there used to be this like, I guess not a written rule, but like a spoken rule that a movie ticket could never cross $5. It was called the Working's Man Entertainment, because no matter what, they wanted to have the working class always be able to take a break throughout their day and enjoy an 1.5 to 2 hour movie. That went out the window. And so at least with streaming, you had basically the entire catalog at movies at your disposal for $8 a month.
Out of curiosity, 1629. Um, 1629. Oh, Minnesota. Jeez. Okay. 13, Alaska. 19. Okay, what's the highest? Okay, there we go. Hawaii. Still over 20. New York, 23. Yeah, New York got it rough, man. 23. Yep, okay. Nobody's beating that. Cheapest creepers.
Now it's $17.99 and it's going to keep going up.
They think you are just a filthy consumer. They think that we are just a filthy consumer. Worst part is I don't think nobody nobody who watched this video can disagree. Not maybe like 1% maybe, but like good gosh.
You know, the Spotify thing.
I did not watch the entire video, I'll be honest. I don't know why the red line is there.
Really frustrated me.
Unless because, I don't remember.
Again, if it was within the email, thank you so much for being a premium subscriber. We really value you. We want to let you know that because blah, 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 blah. We were having to increase our prices by 33 cents. Then I would have said, oh, okay, at least, thank you for letting me know. Not only that, they didn't let me know why they were doing it, but they made me go look at what the benefits were that they were offering me, because it's clearly that hard for them to figure out what the benefits actually are. I couldn't tell you what it is. And I've had it since high school. It's the exact same. And I can guarantee it's not worth whatever it is, $12 now or $13. I understand that this is just like a piracy video, right? It's not that deep, but I think it is. I think that this is the what we're really seeing is, and give me 1 second, I have to turn the light back on. What we're getting to see is a form of resistance to, we're not going to accept this greed and corruption. We have to begin seeing more of this resistance throughout our lives, throughout society. We have to begin standing up, because they will never do anything. Their entire objective is for their shareholders. I know that for myself personally, I am doing everything that I can to go throughout my apartment and find anything that might be listening to me. So one of the things that I didn't discuss is that your TV, if you have a TV that you can like speak into the remote, it is consistently tracking what it is that you're saying. You can even look at Samsung's privacy policy suggests that if you're supposed to have an important conversation, to unplug the TV. So until I can figure out what to do about that, I will be unplugging my TV. I'm getting rid of anything that might be listening to me. I'm having a designated microphone switch for some of those items. And the reason is that I'm not concerned that I'm going to say something I shouldn't. They don't have the right to be able to encroach into my personal privacy. And they certainly don't have the right to be able to turn around and sell it back to me. We have to begin standing up for this. Your data is important. Your time is important, and your dollars are important. Our government doesn't care about the dollar, right? It's getting devalued to oblivion, but you worked hard for it. So stand up and fight for it. So I'm going to challenge you. What subscription are you going to delete from this video? What do you believe disrespects you the most? What are ways that you're going to be able to manage in your own life to take some of that control back? And how are you going to prove to them, you have to earn my dollar? Go through that in every aspect of your life. Make sure that you know your time is worth whatever. It has value. Your time is valuable. Don't just give it away. Don't give them the power. You are worth more than that. So that's about all I have to say for it. Please make sure that you check out Delete Me, subscribe to the channel, and like the video if you haven't already done so. It really allows me to be able to keep curating the content for the individuals that want to lead us to a better tomorrow. I actively want to be able to participate, and like I've said in my last video, plant the trees so that my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids can benefit from the shade. We have to start having people do that, and I'm going to do everything that I can to lead by example and hope to continue to provide value to you guys in every way that I can. So thank you all so much for your time. Until next time, bye-bye. According to the PE bankruptcy report,
Next video. I'm not gonna lie, man. The fact that we're just a filthy consumer in their eyes, and we can't argue. We are. How much slop has people purchased in the past month? Let's just say last month. I've been avoiding trying to buy my sister those plushies, cause those tariffs are murder. It's unreasonable.
private equity was responsible for 54% of the largest bankruptcies in 2025, while fueling a credit bubble double the size of what triggered the Great Recession. And with institutional investors set to own 40% of single-family homes by 2030, economists warn Gen Z will now enter a generational recession, raising the question, how has Gen Z's future been gutted to nothing more than a monthly subscription? While Gen Z is entering adulthood during the most expensive housing market in history, a cost of living crisis, and a collapsing job market, with economic warning signs increasingly resembling the conditions that led to the global financial crisis, the reality is that this endless selling out of the nation's future can be traced back to the systemic expansions. The reality
Richest 1% controls more wealth than at any time in 50 plus years.
is that this endless selling out of the nation's future can be traced back to the systemic expansion of private equity, a system built on the idea that you will own nothing and be expected to be happy about it. In the 1980s, private equity firms, then more commonly known as leveraged buyout specialists, earned the barbarians at the gate nickname through aggressive takeover tactics that disrupted traditional corporate America and symbolized Wall Street's era of excess and greed. Changes to banking regulations, tax policy, and symbolized Wall Street's era of
I'm not sure if this is the video, but wasn't there like a celebrity that just went into like a very greedy place, and he considered it to be like the scariest place of all time?
excess and greed. Changes to banking regulations, tax policies that favored corporate debt, and the rise of junk bonds allowed investors to raise billions of dollars to acquire companies through leveraged buyouts. This is how leveraged buyouts work. Say this is the bank, this is the company, and I represent private equity. I see that this business needs financial assistance of, say, $100. Rather than using my own $100 to buy or restructure the company, I put in only about 10% or $10 and go to the bank to borrow the remaining 90% or $90. But instead of the debt, leveraged buyouts work. Say this is the bank, this is the company, and I represent private equity. I see that this business needs financial assistance of, say, $100. Rather than using my own $100 to buy or restructure the company, I put in only about 10% or $10 and go to the bank to borrow the remaining 90% or $90. But instead of the debt being tied to me, it is instead placed on the company. So in order to pay off this enormous amount of debt, the company often cuts costs by selling assets, laying off workers, or restructuring parts of the business so it appears more profitable on paper. Once the company stabilizes, I can then take out another loan and pay myself through what is called dividend recapitalization, meaning the company takes on even more debt while I receive a large cash payout and go repeat the process all over again, leaving the losses to be socialized through bankruptcy while the profits remain private. Between 1980 and 1980,
Okay, I think I get it. Barbarians at the gate or turnaround gurus. Private equity and the rise of the LBO. Between 1980 and
1989, leveraged buyouts in the United States surged from roughly $1 billion per year to more than $60 billion before the bubble collapsed in the early 1990s. As firms attempted to rebrand themselves from the reputation of corporate raiders, they increasingly adopted the term private equity. Yet despite the rebranding, leveraged buyouts only continued to expand. Rather than using their own capital for the equity portion of these deals, private equity firms began raising massive investment funds from pensions and university endowments while borrowing the remaining capital from banks and credit markets. Capital for the equity portion of these deals. Private equity firms began raising massive investment funds from pensions and university endowments while borrowing the remaining capital from banks and credit markets, allowing the industry to grow at unprecedented rates while the risk shifted onto public assets. Today, the top 5 private equity firms control assets under management larger than the economies of 180 countries, including Japan and India, granting them the ability to gut housing, healthcare, and job opportunities, all in the pursuit of shareholder profits at housing, healthcare,
insurance, private equity, real estate. Okay. I hate these
and
people.
job opportunities, all in the pursuit of shareholder profits. Well, more than
Okay, a serious question. Who do you hate more, shareholders or just corporations? I'm gonna go with shareholders because they do ruin a lot of things. I mean, yes, the corporation could have been bad already, but there are some that didn't start off bad.
And 1 million Americans lost their jobs in retail as a result of private equity takeovers between 2009 and 2019, with companies such as Toys R Us, private equity takeovers between... While more than 1 million Americans lost their jobs in retail as a result of private equity takeovers between 2009 and 2019, with companies such as Toys R Us having become the poster child, being saddled with more than $5 billion in debt, and ultimately laying off over 33,000 workers, the unfortunate reality is that with a collapsing job market and rising cost of living...
Okay, I feel so old when I first saw the Toys R Us. I never went inside, but just seeing it there, it kind of put a smile on my face, but boy, oh boy, it's so, like, it's a husk of what it was, or it's just not there anymore.
Gen Z is increasingly dependent on the same low-wage service and retail jobs that private equity is aggressively gutting. In the consumer discretionary sector, private equity-backed companies accounted for more than 71% of the largest bankruptcies in 2025. Even in manufacturing, an industry the United States is essentially taxing Americans billions of dollars trying to bring back, private equity-backed firms accounted for roughly 60% of the largest bankruptcies, reflecting the rate at which job firms accounted for...
Investors warn of rot in private equity as funds strike circular deals. Buyout firms have struggled to sell companies they own and have instead found a workaround to get cash back to clients, selling the companies to themselves.
For roughly 60% of the largest bankruptcies, reflecting the rate at which job opportunities for a generation already defined by underemployment and a lack of entry-level jobs are being suspended for a generation.
Recent graduate unemployment. Recent graduate unemployment rate. Pink is recent graduate. Young. The straight line is young workers. All workers. Oh my gosh. We're not even 10%. Are you kidding me? No, we're not even 8%. Are you... Wait. We're not even 8%.
Already defined by underemployment and a lack of entry-level jobs are being systemically eliminated. And while the average leverage buyout results in an 18% reduction in wages, the results of this endless greed could not be more visible than in the nation's housing market. The United States currently faces endless greed.
Blackstone rental housing portfolio, multifamily, single-family rentals, mobile homes, student housing. Not a single pink could be found.
Could not be more visible than in the nation's housing
there it is.
Market. The United States currently faces a housing shortage of roughly 5 million homes, alongside a shortage of 7.
Some people are going to be like, oh, that's so ugly. I need a roof over my head. That's all that matters. I don't care about if it's ugly or not. I just need a roof over my head. It's like, what's the point of moving out of your parents' house if this is what's waiting for you?
2 million affordable and available rental units. But rather than address this shortage, private equity firms such as Blackstone have begun rapidly building entire communities with the sole intention of renting them out. Build-to-rent homes have risen 134% since 2019, representing the fastest growing segment in residential development and accounting for roughly 8 to 15% of all single-family housing starts in the United States. And private equity is also consuming one of the last remaining single-family housing starts in the...
When I watch a Smuggalana reaction, houses that look like these grossed her out. I can understand why, but it's like, you gotta make do with what you got. It sucks, but you need a roof over your head. sometimes have nightmares that I'm gonna be living outside. It's not. This sucks. Even with a job, I feel like I have to sleep outside or own a tent or something.
United States. And private equity is also consuming one of the last remaining sources of affordable housing: manufactured homes. In 2020 and 2021, institutional investors accounted for 23% of all manufactured home park purchases in the United States, with just 23 private equity firms controlling more than 1,800 parks across the country, representing over 400,000 lots. In Michigan alone, private equity owns roughly 25% of all manufactured housing, ultimately raising rents by more than 45%. And with first-time homebuyers now at their lowest level in nearly 50 years, Gen Z will spend roughly $145,000 on rent by the time they turn 30, effectively giving up on home ownership less than a decade after graduating college. And while private equity has already wiped out hundreds of thousands of jobs and raised...
Okay, these SpongeBob episodes makes me feel like they were trying to tell us something a long time ago. But they're trying to like predict the future like the Simpsons did or something.
Rents on hundreds of thousands of homes, these firms have now shifted their attention towards industries that people desperately rely on to survive, most notably healthcare. Private equity firms have invested well over $1 trillion in U.S. healthcare over the past decade, across sectors such as hospitals, behavioral health, nursing homes, ambulance services, and medical staffing, often leaving these systems with enormous amounts of debt. Research has linked private equity ownership of hospitals to a 13.4% increase in emergency department deaths, and a 2.7% rise in 30-day post-operative mortality, as the very people responsible for life or death situations are increasingly treated as costs to be minimized, including salary cuts of nearly 18% and an 11.6% drop in full-time emergency department staffing. Patients at private equity-owned hospitals also experience roughly 27% higher falls and 38% more central line infections, while private equity-owned nursing homes have been linked to higher mortality and infection rates, all due to chronic understaffing, where private equity-owned companies accounted for 44% of the largest healthcare bankruptcies in 2025 and 88% in 2024. And while there are countless ways to mortality and infection rates, all due to chronic understaffing, where private equity-owned companies accounted for 44% of the largest healthcare bankruptcies in 2025 and 88% in 2024. And while there are countless ways the system affects younger generation, we lost 40 something percent. I was exaggerating when I made that title, you know that? I was exaggerating on that title. I don't want to actually be right about it. With nearly 25% of Gen Z already skipping recommended medical treatments due to rising costs, it could not be more obvious that in the United States, the health of Americans does not come even remotely close to shareholder profits. And just as private equity consumed the healthcare industry,
why is it always shareholders? Like, why? Okay, wait, before I continue, let me ask this question to myself. Okay, keep it that way. Keep it that way. Catering to these Neanderthals is absolutely insane.
Remotely close to shareholder profits. And just as private equity consumed the healthcare industry, it is now turning its attention towards the nation's food supply.
Hold up.
And just as
over 40% of the nation's emergency departments are overseen by for-profit staffing companies. We're nothing but
private equity consumed the
Wallets,
healthcare
man.
industry, it is now turning its attention towards the nation's food supply. While the meatpacking industry is already facing extreme consolidation, with just 4 firms controlling roughly 60% of U.S. chicken production, the top 4 beef processors controlling roughly 85% of the market, and 4 pork packers producing roughly 70% of all output, private equity has begun implementing leveraged buyouts among struggling family farms, stripping the operations for profit on the balance sheet before ultimately selling the remaining assets to dominant meat packers for pennies on the dollar. And as family farms are being pushed out of business, 99% of farmed animals in the United States are now being raised in cruel factory farm conditions, despite roughly 3/4 of the public opposing those practices, ultimately setting the cost that my generation and future generations will be forced to bear as corporations continue squeezing every last cent out of the system at the expense of our careers, our homes, our health, and the treatment of animals. Which is why I want to share one way that I personally fight against the system and support a better future through FarmKind. FarmKind helps people support real change within the food system for animals, people, and the planet. What makes them different is they identify organizations with proven track records of improving animal welfare within industrial agriculture, evaluating measurable outcomes, cost efficiency, and verified impact to determine where each dollar can produce the greatest improvement. For instance, a recommended charity helped to increase cage-free egg production in the US from 10% to 40% over the past decade, while also directly targeting corporations, convincing McDonald's, Walmart, and Nestle to phase out caged eggs, allowing hens the basic ability to spread their wings, while also creating more opportunity for smaller humane farms to compete. Through their platform, you can explore the charities they recommend and choose the one you want to support, or donate to their impact fund, which targets several of the most harmful practices within industrial animal agriculture, all at the same time. They also show the real impact of each contribution. For example, as little as 50 cents a day, or about $15 a month, can help improve the lives of nearly 350 animals each year. And because FarmKind itself is fully grant funded, 100% of your donation goes directly to those efforts. If you want to support work focused on the structural issues behind factory farming and the conditions that enable it, use the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen.
If you got the
use
money
code
to,
Damon
if you got the money to
_C,
spare, do it.
recurring donations get a 50% boost. It was amazing to see how many of you responded last time that I spoke about FarmKind. So thank you all so much for helping push back against animal cruelty,
you guys already
and thank
did
you
it.
FarmKind for supporting this channel. Alongside private equity gutting nearly every foundational aspect of American society that took decades of sacrifice and forward thinking from our great-grand aspect of American society that took
So much debt for AI data centers, low wages.
decades of sacrifice and forward thinking from our great-grandparents. The next logical aspect in proving how much of a plague private equity has become is discussing how they are funneling immense amounts of debt into AI data centers. However, due to recent headlines, there is somehow an even more pressing concern: private credit. Private credit refers to loans made outside the traditional banking system, typically issued by private equity firms, asset managers, and specialized lending funds directly to companies that either cannot or do not want to borrow from banks. Today, this market is estimated to companies that either private equity firms.
Private credit refers to capital that private funds loan to businesses through direct lending or structured finance arrangements. Private credit is an important part of U.S. and European capital markets, providing vital funding to businesses of all sizes. Okay. Lending money to a business without using a traditional bank. Okay. Instead of going to a bank branch, a company borrows directly from private investors or special funds. It is faster, more flexible, and often involves higher interest rates for the lender, of course. Why people use it? Interest rate lower, private credit higher, better. Oof. Okay. Illiquidity.
Liquidity. Liquidity.
Liquidity. Investors often cannot easily get their money back quickly because the loans are locked in for several years. If the company fails to pay back the loan, investors lose their money. Less regulation. These lenders operate outside the strict rules that apply to traditional banks, which can lead to higher risk. Okay, yeah, I'm out.
Firms, asset managers, and specialized lending funds directly to companies that either cannot or do not want to borrow from banks. Today, this market is estimated to exceed $3 trillion, roughly double the size of the subprime lending market that triggered the 2008 financial crisis. And, of course, in traditional corporate circular financing fashion, many of these loans are extended to businesses that were already acquired through private equity buyouts, meaning the same firms that loaded companies with debt are now often the ones refinancing that debt through private credit funds. And because these loans operate largely outside traditional banking systems, or what is known as shadow banking, they face far less regulatory oversight, often involve weaker lending standards, and frequently
Doesn't it get to a point where it's usury? Doesn't that get to a point where it's usury?
rely on optimistic assumptions about future growth to justify the enormous amounts of debt, essentially meaning that we have no idea the magnitude of debt behind many of
And doesn't debt double if you don't pay it off next year?
these deals. And just within the process of making this video, BlackRock was forced to limit investor withdrawals from one of its private credit funds after redemption requests exceeded available liquidity, signaling that while this may not be an immediate crisis, this is yet another warning sign of economic decay. And when a debt bubble is coupled with geopolitical conflict, creating uncertainty across global markets, while a growing number of borrowers are already struggling to meet payments, analysts are increasingly warning that if defaults accelerate, the same opaque financial system that fueled this massive lending boom could rapidly become the next major financial crisis. And while essentially every American will be forced to pay the consequences of this rampant systemic greed, the unfortunate reality is that nearly every aspect of the American economy now appears.
Do not drag me into this. For the love of God, do not drag me into this. Please. Are you kidding me? What do you mean everybody is gonna get dragged in?
And while essentially every American will be forced to pay the consequences of this rampant systemic greed, the unfortunate reality is that nearly every aspect of the American economy now appears.
When was this video made? 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
To be in a tight race for the first bailout, just as Gen Z is entering adulthood. A bailout that will come from a government already straddled with unprecedented levels of debt, and with a generation that is economically behind in nearly every measurable metric, having its concerns dismissed with the same tired accusations of laziness and entitlement. At the end of the day, Gen Z is the one staring down the barrel of a life of owning nothing and being forced to be. And while I could certainly sit here and be just like every other news report or media outlet and say, you know, we're not quite at crisis level yet. Or I could go as far as say, the economy is still robust and we are weathering the storm. At some point, when are we going to pull our heads out of the sand and recognize that there is no incentive for things to get better? I should not be able to pull a straw out of a hat and have every single straw be a signal for some sort of economic catastrophe. Whether it's the job market, it's AI, it's the car market, it's private equity, it's private credit, it's what's happening in agriculture, it's what's happening with our infrastructure, it's our national debt, it's geopolitical conflict. It's non-stop. And when you're a young person, how are you supposed to be able to build some sort of foundation when the foundation, not only the foundation that you're building on top of is quickly being, outsourced and sold off for pieces and parts, but it's rotten. It's just greed and corruption. It's disgusting. But what I want to do is I want to let's put ourselves in the shoes of a private equity firm. Clearly, I have no morals, no empathy, no compassion, no desire to see anything get better. And while you might be saying, well, it's not a real thing, so how could it feel these things? I think that we have to remember that it's being run by people. The people at the head of the company, the shareholders, whatever it is still people that are making the decisions to do what it is that they're doing. And they're doing it for money. They're doing it for endless profit, for consumption, for greed. So it is people. And because we're doing all of these things for shareholder profits without any sort of limit or cap.
I'm sorry. I keep getting sidetracked, but it just reminds me of this. Any of these could have been used for this. I could have sworn I clicked on it.
$792% interest rate. This is at a 792% interest rate. You borrowed 500.
Yes, yeah.
What's your total you're paying back by the end?
$2,000.
$4,000 for $500. They started garnishing your wages from this loan?
Yes.
You gave them access to your account?
Yeah.
This isn't a government. They can't just garnish unless you give access. Why would you give them access to your payroll?
I thought it was required.
I make good money doing this, don't get me wrong. But look how much more money can be made out there if you just have no morals. They gave you $500 and they make $3,500 of profit? Oh my goodness. Why sit here and film with someone who's a disgusting person when I could just be giving out loans to disgusting people and ruining their lives? This is
Why would I not continuously gut and remove and consume
This
everything
is where
humanly
we're
possible
heading.
with every warning sign around me? Why would I not do it when I know I'm going to get bailed out? When I know I will pay zero consequences? Not only that, if, say, America does collapse, well, I'll just move somewhere else. I have enough money to be able to weather the storm. Now, America isn't going to collapse. It probably is going to end up being some sort of like shell company, you know, corporate America. And it's going to be just like a leveraged buyout. Consume it, put as much debt as you possibly can, strip it for pieces and parts, leave the people that can't afford to leave to have to deal with the consequences, move off somewhere else. You know, it was just... The way that I prepare for these videos is I read different things for about 3 hours a day. And then whenever I'm not...
We are surrounded by demons, and they're all in a business suit. That's terrifying.
At my desk working, I listen to whatever it is. It's either interviews or news reports or conferences or, you know, you name it. For this video, it was just, you know, you hear stories of these pension funds that are $15 to $20 million, and they get liquidated all the way down to $3,000 because of private equity leveraged buyouts that go to bankruptcy. Again, they're not putting in their own capital. They're putting in pension fund capital. These people work their entire lives for this money, for it to just get wasted. There was a video of a lady explaining how her manufactured home, how the rent on the lot went up $200 a month. And the guy asked her, "So what is your plan?" And she said, "I hope to not wake up tomorrow." That was her plan. You know, it's so sad. I'm very appreciative of what I'm about to say in terms of the support that you guys give, but one of the most common things that I see in the comment section of my videos is people saying, "Thank you for always remembering the little guy." And again, while I appreciate the support, like, I'm just doing what you should do. I'm doing the right thing. Like, this isn't something that I should be getting a medal for. I don't understand why do people not care? I look at other YouTube creators in my niche, or whatever you call it. And unfortunately, my niche is dominated by private equity firms buying these YouTube channels. And I watch them talk about similar things that I talk about, knowing that they are bought by private equity, knowing that their script is written by AI, and that it's an AI voice that is doing the narration. And it's so soulless. It's so fake. It's like you're no better than the very thing that you're attacking. How can you say how bad AI is when everything was made by AI? It's just for money. I don't know. I don't understand why more people aren't doing these things. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Those Opus AI ads. It's very tempting, I'm not gonna lie. It's very tempting. But there is a limit that you have to do your research on.
And I just think it's really sad. Like, there's so many people that are having their lives just...
I'm sorry for pausing again. Before you get yourself Opus AI, I know a lot of people have like bought it and went with the subscription and blah blah blah, and they only talk about the good points about it. There are in fact bad points that you need to keep in mind. It's like the standard, you only have, what was it, an hour and 50 minutes of editing that it can do, and then the standard, it gives you 500 minutes, or was it 5 hours? It was basically something close to 5 hours. I don't know what was the exact number, but it was 5 hours of editing content. Like if you did a full stream, it would edit that entire 5 hours and only like do its thing during the editing. But that one stream is what you're gonna be using for that entire month. You can't edit another thing after that. Until they fix that, I recommend not using it. That's my opinion. Because imagine just doing one full 5 hour stream, or 4, however long stream you ever done. You just get 5 hours of editing for that month, and then you have to wait till next month.
Be completely gutted. And again, you name it, pull the straw out of the hat, and it's costing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, and we're pretending everything's fine.
It's not
So
fine.
when it comes to something like private equity, or again, any of these major things that we're discussing, one person is not going to be able to fix it. Private equity, again, they were called barbarians at the gate. Private equity has been destroying us for 20 years, 30 years. This video isn't going to change that. I understand that it's not going to do that.
At least it gives a witness.
The important thing is that we cannot allow all of the corruption around us to give us the excuse to not show up in our own life. What I really believe in is this compounded effect of hope, or compounded effect of change. Robert F. Kennedy called it a small ripple of hope. I believe that if we do things in our own life, that we can directly make an impact. Not only does it force us to be present and living in our lives, but it gives the opportunity for somebody else to recognize it and decide, I'm going to lead in my life, or I'm going to impact my environment, or I'm going to have some sort of change. Recently, I shared about how I go to a gym, and I've been going since I was 18. And for years, I would push in all the chairs, and the chairs would just be all over the place the next time that I went there. And now it's been long enough that I walk in there, and for the majority of the time, the chairs are always pushed in. Here at my apartment complex, the mats, whenever you walk into a door, they're like in the most obscure place possible. They are never where they're supposed to be. And again, I've lived here for, 4 years. The mats are now pristine because I have been adjusting them every single time. And I think it caught on. You know, whenever I look at, say, trash on the ground, or the mats destroyed, or, all of these different little things, chairs not pushed in, or a table left dirty, or, you name it. It wasn't private equity that did that. It wasn't corruption. It wasn't greed. It wasn't all of these other things that we want to point our fingers at. It was us. At the gym in my bathroom, there is nothing but paper towels all over the floor. That came from people not being present in their life and not having the care and the discipline to be able to take action. We're not going to take action in terms of, leading some sort of protest in the streets to stop private equity from buying homes if we can't even pick up the trash on the ground. And we can't even agree if it's important to pick up the trash on the ground. And so again, it's what Mr. Rogers said. Look for the helpers. If you look for the helpers, not only will it give you hope and inspiration to be able to make change, but it also it starts to make a difference. If we are all doing what it is that we can, if it's as small as pushing in a chair, or if it's as big as changing the dynamics within your corporation or your company, I think that both of those are doing a great impact. And so I don't want you to leave this thinking, well, we're doomed. There's nothing that we can do. I do think that I think it's almost inevitable that we will see an economic collapse. I don't think that that's going to be like, we're eating bugs and living under trees, but I don't think that it's going to look good. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to be a part of the change and the movement that gets us out of that and begins to rebuild a society for the betterment of future generations. With that being said, I really hope this was able to provide some value to you. If it did provide value, if you don't mind liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already done so. Again, I'm really trying to push. I'm focused on future generations, trying to build a better tomorrow. If you want to be a part of that movement, please support me, or just, if you would like, support the channel if you'd like to do so. Beyond that, thank you all so much for your time. Until next time, bye-bye. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay, we'll come back to this another time. Okay, we'll come back to this another time. Alright. Gonna play some Darkest Dungeon. I'm gonna make this into a separate stream though. Bye bye.